Alright, and welcome back. Actually, before we go on, I'd just like to recount for you one of Lily's recurring dreams. I just ask that you bear with me as it's a little long in the telling, so to say. She finds herself back at Candlekeep in the company of Imoen, Nalia, and Nara, her apprentice from the planar sphere. She wants to craft a magical wand, one that would allow her to alter the actuality of the past, present, or future. That is, one that would grant her a wish, however limited. But at the same time, it should bestow wisdom on her, so her lips may utter wisely when choosing. She's already learnt the spell Limited Wish, but she knows of no arcane spell that grants wisdom. She takes the better part of a year examining potions of insight, studying dusty tomes in the Candlekeep library, and experimenting with odd materials for which she sends Nalia and Nara to collect, including owl feathers and droppings, which Nalia leaves for Nara to do. Finally, she develops a spell of her own making. She calls it Owl's Breath. Not only does she copy the spell into her spellbook, but she scribes 2 scrolls for safekeeping. She now needs to acquire gemstones, which are to be enspelled with the powers that her wand is to be imbued with during the enchantment. These are known as focal stones, and only high-quality gemstones will do. Not having enough coin to buy them outright from a jeweler in nearby Baldur's Gate, she's forced to take Imoen, Nalia, and even Nara on a small expedition south of the keep to a deserted part of the coast where it's actually rumored to be a pirate shipwreck. Finally, after the second new moon since they set out, Lilly and company returned to Candlekeep with 3 emeralds. 1 for Limited Wish, 1 for Owl's Breath, and 1 just in case. She prepares the focal stones by casting focus stone spells on each. Then, by way of a Dwemer Flow spell, she's able to pour Limited Wish into one and Owl's Breath into the other, sealing each with an abeyance spell. Imoen hides the stones for safekeeping in her private quarters. There's an old saying among mages, "Of these 3 are great magic born, with silver cut, oak, ash, thorn." Lily's interest in fine petite blades should make sense to you now. Not trusting anyone else to the task, Lilly takes her best silver dagger, searches for a suitable oak specimen outside the keep, and cuts a slender branch from it. Back in her chambers, careful not to cut herself with the exquisite blade, she carves it into the rough shape of a wand. She casts an Azunder's purification spell on it twice and bathes it in a potion of healing before casting a Nullithos Nineman spell on it for durability. Finally, she sets her personal sigil in silver to the end of the yet unmastered wand, purifying it with an Obar's Lesser Purification spell and fusing it with a Merald's Meld spell. Imoen fetches for her the previously prepared focal stones, Nalia collects her books and other things, and Nara draws water from the well. She leaves instructions with Imoen to not be disturbed. She closes herself in her private chambers with a cot, a chamber pot, jugs of water, candles, a bit of food, her spellbooks, and of course, the focal stones and unmastered wand. She discovers Imoen has slipped an endearing note of encouragement under a healing potion set on the floor by her bed, just in case. She barricades the door with a wall of stone spell and sheds her jewelry and clothes to don only a single robe of black Sembian silk. She's barefoot, and even her hair has been left free to fall to her shoulders. Now, in the center of a marble altar, she sets out the unmastered wand and casts an eternal flame spell in order to prepare it for enchantment. She places the 2 focal stones, one near each end, and casts a wondrous web spell over the stones and wand in order to link them. Touching her personal sigil set in silver on the end of the yet unmastered wand with the pad of her crooked little finger, and with eyes closed, she whispers one of her true names, Lilac, so as to render it only usable by herself. Everything is prepared. Here's where the dream typically ends, as a nightmare. As Lilly casts an awakening spell to enchant the wand, she perishes in a spectacular wild surge or some other arcane explosion due to a forgotten step in the crafting. But this time it works. The wand flashes with a blinding light indicating success. Exhausted and paranoid, as most mages are, she cradles the enchanted wand close to her bosom, stumbles to bed, and sleeps for a very long time. When she wakes, she has enough energy to cast a permanency spell on it before returning to bed to fully recuperate. At last, when she wakes, she's still cradling the now finished wand. She refreshes herself, gathers her hair into a bun, and returns to more modest attire before dispelling the wall of stone. When she emerges from her chambers, Imoen is there to greet her with a broad but tired smile, as is Nalia and Nara. It's taken almost 2 years, but she finally has what Imoen calls Lilly's little whittled wisher. She never gets to try it before waking up. Alright, so why did I recount this dream? Well, I thought there were at least 2 details that were interesting, even if enigmatic. Lilly's personal sigil, which of course contains the interconnected letters L and B, obviously representing her given and family names. But there's also what appears to be an interconnected lowercase letter I. Does it stand for something? Or is it instead perhaps pictographic representing a flower? Which of course brings us to the second detail. Lilac, one of her true names, and Lilly, though spelled unconventionally, are both flowers. Was Lilac her nickname as a little girl? An adolescent friend? Her first love? Of course, nobody knows any of these things to even ask Lilly what they mean. Not even Imoen. I'll leave the interpretation of the dream up to you, as well as to surmise if the wand would have even functioned as expected, and if so, what Lilly would have even wished for. But there is a practical point to all this. The crafting and enchanting of magical items is a long and exhausting process, even perilous, especially for someone like Lilly, whose art is subject to the hazards of wild magic. In fact, I think we've seen some of that with the apprentices at the Planar Sphere. Should be no wonder, then, why she would rather acquire those items the easy way, through coin, lies, or blood. I should probably close by at least mentioning that a lot of this was based on Volo's Guide to All Things Magical, which of course refers to 2nd edition. Alright, but otherwise we're actually ready to return, I believe, to the southern tunnels.
How may I assist?
You must gather.
Actually, I think before we move on, there's just 2 things I wanted to address. Yeah. Now he's going to rememorize Chain Lightning, and since we're expecting beholders, I'm going to give the Shield of Baldur to Mazzy. Oops. Of course, thanks to Real Arcalian for reminding me that weapon size and creature size are unrelated in the video game. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing my mind. Of course, I had a discussion about this a long time ago, at least in pen and paper. This is just an example. This longsword, being a large weapon, would actually be a 2-handed weapon for Mazzy as a halfling, but of course, that's not the case here. So, I don't have to worry about anything like that. So, of course, the Shield of Baldur for what we're expecting to be more beholders, as we've recovered the Blade of the Equalizer, and I guess Lilly's hoping to find the hilt here as well. Alright.
I am yours to command.
You know what?
What? Yep.
I think I can actually cast invisibility on Mazzy.
The group needs me?
Just so she can pick and choose. Depending what's
In the name of Ruth, we fight!
what's out here. We were not expecting to see drow. Alright. Fighting a beholder. I guess that's a good thing. You know what? Well,
In the name of Ruth, we fight!
alright, looks like the drow are probably gonna win. In which case, I think we'll get ready to that. They're waiting to put on drow armor for when we finally did face drow. So I guess we'll do that now. Alright.
Sire?
Yeah, they just killed that beholder.
Something amiss?
Alright. Oh, I guess he doesn't see Mazzy because she's invisible.
Yes?